All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, and we actually have a phenomenal, legendary individual live on the line. We have Jesse West, also known as Third Eye, right here on the line, man. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm doing good, man. What about yourself?
I'm doing best I can possibly be down here in Canada, man. Just trying to transition from spring to fall, man. Fall definitely slapped us in the face, like, very quickly.
Oh, okay. Canada is up for me. I'm in New York. I'm in the Bronx.
Oh yeah, we're about I would say we're about 4 or 5 hours actually from the Bronx. So I guess in a way we kind of get the same weather ratio.
Yeah. I've been in Canada several times, different places. I actually used to have an uncle that used to live in Canada somewhere, and we used to visit him when I was younger.
But also, Jesse, I know you're a busy individual, man. So I'm going to dive right into this interview. But I want to take you back to near the beginning of your amazing hip hop career this far, where you were actually one of the first artists to actually sign with the legendary Motown Records. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners the story behind this deal, and of course, like, how did they originally discover you?
Well, actually, I had a friend. His name is Gordon Williams. Most people know him as Commissioner Gordon Williams. He did a lot of work with Lauryn Hill. I think he won a couple of Grammys for engineering and recording the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. But anyway, he was when we were younger, maybe 19, 20. That's when I met him, and he just had these connections. He knew one of the A&Rs at Motown named by the name of Timmy Regisford. And Timmy Regisford was a prominent clubhouse DJ in New York City, in those house circles. But anyway, at the time, Timmy Regisford was A&R at Motown, and Gordon happened to know him. I think he met him because Gordon also was a member of a group called In Touch, and they had a pretty big house record out back in about maybe 1987. 88 or something like that. But anyway, that's how that deal came about. I mean, it's quite simple. Gordon and I were recording demos, and he played one of the demos for Timmy Regisford, and he signed me. They had already signed MC from the West Coast named MC Trouble. She was the first rapper that they actually signed, but I finished my record so quickly, so my record ended up being the first rap record that Motown ever put out. A record called No Prisoners. Yeah, that's how it went. It was interesting.
And if you don't mind me asking, Jesse, was there any like animosity between like MC Trouble? Was she kind of upset that your record actually came out first, or was it all, or was it all love?
No, because we were all new at this anyway. We didn't know it made it. We didn't have a sense of it making a difference whose record was out. I mean, there may have been maybe two or three other major labels that had signed rap acts at that time. This was 1988. So no, we didn't. It wasn't competitive or anything like that. We didn't. It wasn't even planned that way. I just went and finished. I finished that album in a month, and we turned it in, and so they went with it. And then we did another artist named Rich Nice. I think his record was the second rap record he put out, but we were under the same production company, and we did his album in a month. I worked on that record with him also.
And I gotta say as well, just while we're on the topic of No Prisoners, man, the one song that I always enjoyed was actually State of Your Mind.
State of Your Mind, yeah, State of Your Mind. Well, I haven't heard these songs in so long. That was one of my favorites. That was one of my favorites on that album. But I'm a Warrior was always my favorite, and that was the it might have been the first record I had ever produced. Gordon Williams produced the bulk of the album, and I think I may have produced two. But I was new to production at the time, and I was learning a lot from Gordon. And they gave me a chance. But yeah, Warrior, that was my favorite on that record.
And
that was just a classic album that it may have stayed under the radar because it was so underground. But then somehow Kid Capri got a hold of it, and it was a staple on his tapes for about a good year or so. Every mixtape that Kid Capri put out, he would put one of my records on there. So, I always appreciate him for that, and that kind of made it a classic. So, a good amount of people are familiar with the project through Kid Capri.
And also, as well, I actually read that you actually recorded Notorious B.I.G.'s very first demo. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners the story behind this project, and of course, how did that opportunity originally arise for you being able to produce Notorious's first demo?
Well, okay, so, everything, so now by me being signed to Motown, at the time, Motown Records shared an office with Uptown Records because they were both being distributed by NCA Records. So, the same floor. You come in there. You come into the. Once you come on the floor, you go to the right. That's Motown. You go to the left. That's Uptown. So, always being up at the label, that's how I came to meet Puffy. And this is the time when he was an intern. He was an intern, and I think he did some choreographing for a video that Stacey Latta saw, who was signed to Motown. She had a video, and I think he's actually dancing in the video. And so we met, and we had a little relationship. And then one day he just came to me and asked, I had a recording studio. He asked me if I still had the studio and could he bring an artist. Because he had an artist that he wanted to sign that he needed a demo for. This artist didn't have a demo, which was pretty unusual back in those times. I had never heard of an artist being signed to a record deal without having a demo. That was very unusual to me. But I said, okay, bring him. And he ended up bringing Biggie Smalls. And we recorded the demo, and the rest is history. After that, we started working together regularly, all the time. In the studio. We were all under the Bad Boy umbrella in the very beginning, and I was at the very beginning. I was the only hit man at the time. From the famous Bad Boy hitman. In the beginning, it was just me. And so we did a lot of recording.
And I have to ask, because obviously, Biggie Smalls was such a phenomenal MC. When you actually first heard him rap, because obviously he didn't have a demo up until this point, until you actually produced it. So sitting there, listening to him, just rap his vocals, what was going through your mind? Were you kind of very surprised at his lyricism?
Oh yeah, it changed. It changed everything about me in terms of me writing and being an MC, specifically my writing, which in turn had an effect on the way I would deliver. It just changed everything about an MC by hearing him, and it had nothing to do with me copying off of anything that he did or trying to sound like him or anything. Because we didn't sound alike at all, but it was something that he unlocked in terms of my writing and the structure of writing. That was what stood out to me. In terms of, the content, what he was saying was also very different than anything I had ever heard, but the way he was saying it, the way he structured his verses was, I had never heard anything like it. And like I said, it opened up a door for me instantly. I was a different MC the next day. That's how powerful it was to me. Yeah.
And also, while we're actually on the topic of Bad Boy Hitman and whatnot, in 1992, you were actually featured on the late great Heavy D and the Boys' album Blue Funk. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners a story behind that studio session, and of course, what was one of your most fondest memories you shared with the late great Heavy D?
Well, nobody ever asked me that before, but I have one memory of Heavy D that I always think about. After we did the Super Cat, the Dally My Baby remix, with it's me, Biggie, and Puffy rhyming on it with the artist Supercat. After we did the remix, I was at Uptown Records. I was walking around, and here comes Heavy D. He's coming down the hallway, and when he sees me coming, he said to me, he said, yo, he said, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. He said, you're becoming my favorite MC right now, right? And I was like, oh my God, thank you, man. Thanks, right? He said, but why you let Puffy rhyme on that track with y'all, man? And I remember telling him, I said, listen, man, he just had, why you let him do that to himself? I said, yo, he don't sound that bad. He was like, yo, he sounds trash. I said, no, man. I said, no, man, he don't sound that bad. Have chill. He just having fun. Let him have fun. He had a good time. Let him have that. And Ham said, no, he's serious. And I walked away laughing. But I always remember that about Heavy D. Especially the fact that, he actually told me that at that time that I was like one of his favorite MCs is priceless, because that's the legend. So,
And I gotta say,
I've been told that by other legends too, but he was the first one, and I never forget that, because it blew my mind. And that was, as I said, that was after I heard Biggie Smalls, and Biggie Smalls transformed me.
And I gotta say, on that song, on the Blue Funk album, yourself and Heavy D, you guys had such phenomenal chemistry on that joint, man. Definitely an instant classic song.
Oh yeah, the Blue Funk, right. So how that came about was, once I did the demo with Biggie, Diddy was so happy with the demo, and the production that I did. I mean, shout out to Mr. C too, because all I did that first demo was Mr. C bought a record and told me, we could use this part and that part, and I just put the track together. But Mr. C bought the sample, and I just built something around the sample. But we just started working together, and one of the things that Puffy did was he helped me get on the Heavy D project. And I appreciated him. I always tell people that and I told him, I always used to tell him that was my first gold record, and I always used to tell him, man, thanks for letting me ride with you, because at that time Heavy D, that Blue Funk might have been maybe his fourth gold album or platinum album. That album was gonna go gold whether my songs were on there or not. That's the way I always felt, and he took three of my songs and put it on that album, and those came about by just being in the studio and me playing him music, and Heavy D always wanted to stay abreast of whatever was going to be the new sound or the new trend in hip hop, and that's why he had such a long career, and it always stayed relevant because he had that sense.
And also, as well, in the early 1990s, you actually teamed up with the legendary hip-hop duo Group Home to actually release a song, Ease Up, that was actually on the soundtrack for the amazing hip-hop movie, Who's the Man? I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners a bit more about that collaboration, and what was it like just teaming up with Group Home to release that song for the soundtrack?
Okay, this is the thing. That's not the same Group Home that worked with DJ Premier. That's not the same. I forget the two brothers' names, man. I forgot their names. But no, that's not the same Group Home. See, there wasn't actually, the Group Home didn't exist at the time when that record came out. I'm not talking about the Group Home that everyone else knows that made the records with made some hot records with DJ Premier. I'm saying for us, it was just a concept, something that we had intended to implement in the future. See, we were, that was one of the things about Diddy, about P. Diddy. He had that mindset, that marketing mindset, where he was like, "This is what we're going to do in the future." And we didn't wait. We had a concept of what we wanted the Group Home to be, as it pertained to Third Eye. But we didn't have the membership. we didn't have the people yet, but we still went with it. It's like Stone Soup. We just made Stone Soup. But that's what that group home is right there. So we didn't know. I never collaborated with that group home.
I gotta say as well though, I'm not gonna lie, like they say, you learn something new every day, and I legit did not know that. When I read that, I was like you mentioned, I was thinking about the group home that did work with DJ Premier, but I'm glad you actually brought that up, man, because I literally have to do my homework just on the group home now.
Yeah. We didn't even know about the group home that Premier came out with. We didn't even know about that. That was just a concept. We would just sit around and think about concepts and marketing ideas, and we came up with the concept of the group home as a marketing scheme when it came to performances. Like just having this wild entourage with us. We were brainstorming. We were young. I might have been like 22. I think I was like 23. Puffy was 22. We were kids.
And also as well, you were actually the first hip-hop artist to actually use the term bling. When you actually used that saying on Supercat's 1993 hit, Dolly My Baby remix, I was wondering what originally inspired you to create that saying, and did you actually think it would be as popular as a saying as it is today, and being used frequently?
No, I didn't. I never thought of that. And it came about from Puffy. That was Puffy's idea. When we were in there doing the remix, initially, I was hired. We were hired to just remix the song. So I went in the studio and I remixed it. I did the track. And while I was working on the track and mixing it with the engineer, or preparing it to be mixed with the engineer, that's when Puff came to me and asked me, what do I think about us rhyming on the track? And I said, us who? He said, you, Big, and me. And I said, and you? He said, yeah, I want you to write something for me. I want to get on this. And I was like, I said to him, no, I don't want to do that, man. I like this track, but it's too slow. It's not something that would normally inspire me to want to rhyme on. And he was like, "Are you crazy?" And he told the engineer, go ahead. Play the track. And he played the track, and he said to me, you know how you rhyming? He said, you could come in here right here like this. Check it out. You could come in, bling, bling, and then he just started mumbling. And just from him saying that bling, bling, well, he said ring, ring, actually. He said ring, ring. And the time it took when I grabbed the pen and started writing, it actually went in the booth, it became bling, bling. So that's exactly how that came about.
And I got to say as well, right then and there, you guys defined just sayings right there, man, because that went on. Still 30 plus years later, individuals still use that. Even individuals that aren't even in the hip hop community use the word bling.
But I think, what's interesting to me, I never was a jewelry person. Like, I never was really into jewelry, wearing gold and diamonds and things like that. That wasn't my thing. And when I wrote it, I wasn't thinking about jewelry. I was thinking about shining. I was thinking about, like when you step in the room and the flashes from the cameras, bling bling. Like take a picture, kind of like. In other words, I was the diamond. But that was just my personal thought about it. No one ever asked me anything about it. But when it became famous, when Lil Wayne, who ultimately made it a household saying, when he did that, it became the same thing that I thought about, but on a material level. It still became shining. It still became, it just became representing jewelry. The only difference is when I came up with it, I was the jewelry. I was the diamond. Everything is related. That's what I think. Nothing new under the sun. Everything's connected. So.
And also, as well, you were actually a former member of the iconic hip-hop collective, the Hit Squad. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners a bit more about this group, and of course, how did you originally get connected with the other members?
Well, originally, right after I started working with Biggie, that's when Das Effects came out with the song "They Want Effects," and I ended up meeting Das Effects. And the reason why we hit it off, because they were telling me how they knew the No Prisoners album off of Motown, and they were saying that was one of their classic albums that they listened to while they were in college and so forth. And so they showed me a lot of respect, and they started inviting me to their shows. And the first show they invited me to, when I got there, I played some of my demos that I had got signed to Bad Boy with, some of those demos. And I wasn't actually signed to Bad Boy yet, but when I played it for them, they recommended me to Parrish. I had never met Parrish or Parrish Smith or Eric Sermon. Obviously I knew who they were, but I had never met them. And so they kept pressing Parrish. Yo, you need to hear this dude. You need to hear this dude. You need to hear this dude. And he finally set up a meeting, and I let him hear it. And then he wanted me to sign to his label, but being that I was about to sign with Bad Boy, I kept telling him, I need you as a manager, because at that time, he had his squad. He was managing all these great artists. So I was telling him I need a manager, and I'm not going to sign to the same label as my manager. We don't back then even do that. So he became our manager from then, And then eventually I left Bad Boy, and when I left Bad Boy, that was the time when I was a hit squad associate, so to speak, for maybe a year or so, maybe 2 years, and that's why I did the video with Top Quality. I don't know if you're familiar with Top Quality. But Top Quality was the first artist that Harris Smith put out on his PMD label. And so I went out on tour. I did a tour with them, Redman, K Solo, Das Effects. Great tour. Very, very, very great experience. We had a good time. It was a good 2 months we went out. Yeah.
And also, jumping ahead in the timeline a little bit, in 2010, you actually teamed up with Bumpy Knuckles to actually release the album Music from the Man Volume 1. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about this collaboration project, and of course, will there ever be a Volume 2 in the future?
It's possible, because as far as the Volume 2, what Freddie Fox is doing is he's making his rounds. Like he's good like that, relationships with producers that he respects and putting in work with them, and he's making his rounds, and he I wasn't the first one that he did that with, I think he did it once with, I believe, Premier, that was his concept, that he just wanted to do whole albums with, producers that he liked. No one had ever done that. And so I just ran into him one day. I forget where we were at, but I ran into him and we exchanged numbers. And being that this was in the beginning of we said 2010. This is the beginning of when the culture became, I don't have to be in the studio with you, just send you the tracks and you do your thing on it. I mean, that's the way it went with him and I, and that's what made us able to make progress so quickly, being in different places. We didn't live too close to each other, and he did most of the work. I mean, I did the work creating the music, but he did most of the production. I made the beats, and he did the production, because I was in the studio with him when he was doing his vocals for that entire project. So that's why I tell people it says produced by Jesse West, but I get the brother credit, man. He's the one that really did the the production. He mixed it. He mixed them. You know, those weren't 2 tracks. I was sending him the sessions, but he mixed it. He arranged it. He did everything. That's production. I just made the beat. But I'm proud of being able to do that project with him. You know, he's an icon.
And I gotta say, you guys had a phenomenal collaboration on that project as well, on Real Recognize Real with Busta Rhymes, man. That song was absolutely fire.
Yeah. At the time, I think Fox and Busta knew each other passively. You know, I'm sure they'd known of each other, but they didn't have that connection at the time yet. And I asked him, I said, man, I hear Busta Rhymes on the track. Do you know Busta Rhymes? And he said, yeah, I know. I'm cool with him, but, you know, I don't. And I told him, well, I could, you know, get this to him, and, you know, I could find out if he wanted to do it. And so I reached out to Busta Rhymes and told him about the project we were doing, and he, you know, immediately he was like, yo, I'm with it. And, you know, again, having that technology for me to be able to just send the 2-track to Busta. He put his vocals on and sent it back to me. I sent it to Fox. We got it done, you know. I mean, talking about it, really talking about it and breaking it down, how a particular project like that is done. I mean, majority of the projects that we hear today out now with these artists are done that way. And just talking about it now, it kind of, for me, it kind of threatens in my sight to take away some of the value of the project, because I come from the era where, you know, when I produced songs for artists, I was in the studio with them. We were in the studio together, putting this together, you know, because production, you know, there's beat makers and there's producers, and then there's producers that are beat makers, and there's beat makers that are producers, you know, and part of production is just something simple as decisions that you need to make when an artist is just recording their vocals. Their production decisions that you need to make, because you as a producer, you know how the song is going to be mixed. So you know how many times you might need this person to layer the chorus. You know, how many times we're going to layer this one note, or we're not going to layer each note. I just want you to do 3 parts. Or, okay, we're going to do 3-part harmony, but each harmony I want to layer on 3 different. These are decisions that a producer makes. So if you not in the studio with the producer, somebody else is making those decisions, you know. But you don't think to give them at least co-production credit for doing that. You know, you send an artist, it could be a big artist, a very big artist, and they call you and say, look, you know, this track you uploaded or something, you know, I want this track. And you hurry up and you send him the track, because, you know, you might be in Atlanta and he's in L.A. So you just send him the track. That's what I would do. You know, you want to get on the project. And when it comes out, it's just going to say produced by you. But you just really made the track. You wasn't even there with him in the studio. Somebody, even if it's himself, a lot of artists, they produce themselves, their vocals, and he's going to choose an engineer on how to mix it. Then the engineer is going to do production, you know, because nowadays with the DAWs, a lot of these engineers, they're very creative with their mixing. They're creative mixing. They don't get production credit, but that's part of it also. That's just my opinion. Sorry for rambling on like that, but, you know, I just...
Hey, it's all good. No need to apologize, man. It's definitely crazy how technology actually, it's kind of like a blessing and a curse nowadays, you know what I mean? Like, just touching base on that. So obviously you're a producer that's been there since the very beginning, pretty much, of hip-hop out there. I have to ask, if you don't mind me asking, man, like, what do you actually prefer? Do you prefer being in the studio working with these individuals, or do you really like how technology has relatively made things easier?
Whatever works for the situation, I'm fine with that. You know, because at the end of the day, to love what you do is a beautiful thing, because if you love it, you're going to do it whether you're getting paid to do it or not. But you still want to be paid to do it. So whatever works business-wise for any situation that I'm dealing with, then I just roll with it. Even if it's a big artist, because being a producer, it just comes like the difference between someone that's a legitimate producer and someone that is in their home, in their private space, with their DAW and just making beats. It's just experience. That's the only difference between the two. As that person that's home in their bedroom or whatever making beats, as they get more and more experience, especially working with artists, that's the reason why you need to get some experience with actually being in the studio and working with artists and helping, because that's how hit records are made. That's how they were made. I mean, there's different ways now, but it can only help the song. When you have more than you have people that are invested in the song creatively, working together. As opposed to, okay, I did the beat, I'm done. I email it to you and whatever you're gonna do, and then when he's done, his manager is like, hey, the baby finished that song. I'm gonna send you a copy of it. And then he's gonna come out and say you produced it, but you did some production because you made the music, and that's part of the production, but that's just part of it. That's just the music is a part of it. Sometimes, some people can argue that without the beat, there's no song. And I mean that's obvious, but it still is a production. It still is a job, and somebody's doing it, and but one person is getting all the credit. That's why I like Kendrick Lamar's. That's one of the things that I like about this Mr. Morale project that he just put out, is because I think sonically it's very well produced, and then when you read the credits, it's a full on team effort. The only person that out of all the songs on that project, the only person that just shared production credit by themselves was Pharrell. And it's not, and no disrespect to Pharrell, but to me that's the weakest track on the whole album. And not to say that the track is whack or anything like that. It's just, to me, it's the weakest track on the album, and I just believe that there's a correlation. Teamwork makes the dream work.
And I gotta ask, Jesse, what is next for yourself, man? Is there anything we happen to miss during this interview? Anything else you do still want to talk about or promote? We still got you here live on the Canadian FM dial this evening.
Okay, well, nowadays I spend most of my time creating samples and sound designing, and I have a website. The website is called StoneSoupRecordings.com. And right now, up there on the website, I have available the first 2 volumes of samples that we created, me and some musicians, bass player, live guitar players. We try to capture as much as we can that vintage analog sound at the moment. As we get better equipment, the samples are. But that's how I spend most of my time now. Every now and again, I just finished doing a song with the artist Nine. Just finished doing something with Positive K. Like a lot of the artists from the 90s, from the era that I came up with, that I stay in contact with. Some of them are still working, like Law Finesse, Awesome too. These are guys I collaborate with regularly. But other than that, my creative endeavors involved. Like I'm just really into creating these samples. And I got into it because it gave me a chance to where I could reach more people. As far far as having a fan base, because I'm not just making records and telling you to, hey, buy my record. I'm selling you something that you can use to help make your dream come true. Because if you're making beats, you're a producer, whatever, and you're into sampling, then I can help. So once again, that's StoneSuitRecordings.com, and that's it. That's about it. Yeah.
And I got to say as well, it's really good to hear that you're actually working with Positive K, man. Sorry, that project that you guys actually worked on, has it already been released, or is it something that's currently pending release right now?
Yeah. It's released. When I say work with them, same thing with Nine. They're not entire like records like with the Bumpy Knuckles. These are songs like I do one-offs with my brothers. They come to me, they want a track, I give them a track, and they go record it. This one is called, the last one I did with Positive K is called Exclusive. But that's out. That one is out. I did one with him before that, too, with him and MC Light. That's also out, too. I think it's called Still Not Having It. That's a good one, too. I like that one.
I actually got Still Not Having It actually in the radio station's rotation, so I'll definitely bump that up to the top and have that play actually momentarily after our broadcast.
Yeah, I did that track too. I did that one. Me and who started it off? I finished it. I forget his name. I think it was Davey DMX. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's Davey DMX. I don't know if you remember Davey DMX.
I remember him. Yeah, legendary old school artist.
yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Legendary Davey DMX. I never met him, but I'm just glad I had the opportunity to work on that project. I'm blessed. I did a lot of things. We could be here for hours.
I honestly, when I was actually putting the questions together for this interview, there's sometimes I interview artists or producers like yourself, and sometimes it's easy to put them together. This one was relatively difficult because you had so much. I was like, oh my god, what am I going to ask this man?
Yeah. Still going. But I appreciate you for having me on your show. I always appreciate when, someone, when anybody is just interested in and want to hear, the story of the journey that I had thus far, in the music business. And I appreciate it.
And before we part ways, Jesse, if you don't mind me asking, man, what is your social media handles? That way our listeners can actually follow you and stay updated on everything you currently got going on if they're not already doing so.
Okay. My Instagram is @IamJesseWest_. @West, a.k.a. Third Eye. Third Eye is the number 3, RDI. Yeah, so it's @IamJesse_West, a.k.a. Third Eye.
And I gotta say, first and foremost, Jesse, thank you so much, man, for just giving us a bit of your time here this evening. And of course, years of monumental music, man. If it wasn't for producers like yourself, we wouldn't have all this legendary, amazing music, man. So thank you so much for putting the finishing touches on so many legendary projects.
I appreciate it, man. Play for your listeners. Play 2 songs for me. Play What You See Is That I Produced. What You See Is What You Get, and play Step Into a World, KRS-One.
Definitely, I got you, man. Easily, I'll consider it done.
All right, and anytime, man. You got my number, man. So if you need anything, call me.
Same goes for you as well, man. Anything you need, don't hesitate to ring my line. I appreciate you, Jesse. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care, man.